Welcome to Upgrade Yourself Live, a series of talks and workshops to uncover and explore alternative creative paths into the creative industry with amazing leaders in their field. And today I'm with someone who is an absolute amazing photographer. He's a fashion and music photographer. It's the one and only Ashley Verse.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am very good and really excited to speak to you because this whole live is about getting tangible advice for creatives in general about how to enter the creative industry and how to kind of explore it, which you've done and done so well as well.
Thank you.
So for the people who don't know Ashley, we're going to show a bit of his work that he has done just so you get a gist of who he is and what he's done. And for everybody here, we get to see it on the TV. So as you can see, guys, we saw his work there, which is so amazingly captured. And could you speak about some of the work that we just saw?
Yeah, I think that selection of images is kind of like transitions of stages that I've been in. I've always kind of worked in fashion and music, and some of it has come from like documentation, so being at concerts and shooting catwalk shows and being in those kind of spaces. And I think I'm building to a space where I can kind of add my own creative flair to it and get in the studio or get on location and do press shots with artists and kind of help work on their brand direction and meet my vision with theirs and create a bit more.
And you know, like, for example, that Stormzy one, which is so good. So that was at one of his concerts, right?
Yeah, that was at one of his Brixton, O2 Brixton headline shows. So
when you like took that and you looked back at all the pictures and you saw that one, did you think, like, wow, I can't believe I got this? Because that shot is amazing.
I definitely felt like it was a moment. And I think when you capture a moment and it incides of a moment in time, it kind of creates that harmony, because I think there was so much story around the Brixton shows and how well that went for him and what kind of a moment that was in his career. So to get a shot like that kind of ties it all up and makes it staple for me in my eyes, that's when I feel like I've achieved something with what I want to do.
Yeah, especially with his concerts, and I feel like he's all about like power and empowerment, and that picture captures that empowerment, I feel. Definitely,
that's kind of what I hoped, because you can't really see him in that shot, like it is quite shadowed, but I think most people, if they enjoy him, then they look at it, they know who it is.
Okay, yeah, of course. So with these shots here, you've captured such amazing artists and moments, but obviously it didn't come just like that. You had to go through a whole process. So could we speak about just early on in your career and how you got into the creative industry in general?
I think the first thing for me is, early on in my career, I didn't know it was a career. I was very much working normal jobs and doing what I was doing in terms of a 9 to 5, but picking up the camera was something that I was just passionate about. I just wanted to create. I very much wanted to be in the music space, but I didn't know what my offering was. I didn't want to rap. But I knew I wanted to do something.
Are you sure? You don't want to?
I had a time where I wanted to rap, and I think I let go of that. And wanted to kind of focus on something. I was studying media. I was actually working on music videos, and that kind of led into me taking pictures. And I was taking pictures for fun. I was going to events, really small events, and that's when I first was kind of able to see a lot of artists in the flesh. I was catching a lot of grime. I was seeing a lot of grime artists, and maybe it was at small radio stations or small clubs, and that's when I first actually started documenting things. And it was that experience and that enjoyment that I got from that made me, that's what I was chasing after that, was that the enjoyment of that experience and having those moments and being like in the middle of it. I think for me, being in the middle of all of that energy, the crowds, the artists, the music, capturing the engagement of both, that was like the beauty of what I love. That's why I kind of kept going to concerts.
It's like the whole experience as a whole, just that whole feeling.
Definitely.
So when it came down to like obviously getting to the industry, and when did you actually figure out that you can do this as a career, by the way?
I think I might have already been doing it when I realized like this might be becoming a career.
So when you were
probably a
in
bit
it?
late, yeah, probably a bit late. I'd probably say 2017, 2018.
Okay.
And even though I was chasing more opportunity and maybe trying to get paid from certain things and things like that, I didn't really actually realize it was a career. It was just something that I knew I wanted to do. But I think that's actually been a benefit for me in a way. I think being passion-led and following that first and then everything second, kind of helped. And then as I've built more business, like as I've become a bit more business-minded or started to learn things about the industry, that has kind of given me a bit more direction. But following passion first and just kind of leading, like letting the camera lead me into everything to give me experience, that was definitely something that helps. It kind of allowed me to do a bit more than music and step into the fashion world and even step into a bit of sport and just give me so many different dimensions. And then that scope allowed me to be like, what do I like and what makes me happy?
A natural progression.
Yeah.
And you briefly spoke about how like you had like a 9 to 5. I know you worked like retail jobs as well.
Yeah.
Did you struggle to maybe sometimes find time to do that and also go to these concerts? But do you feel like because you were so passionate and you loved doing that, it didn't feel like you were juggling all of that at once?
I think what my struggle was with working a 9 to 5 and having a passion was learning to compartmentalize.
Okay.
I think when you are super passionate about something and it's very much something that's outside of work, your mind tends to wander a lot. And but you kind of have to have a 9 to 5 to tick certain boxes to live a certain life and obviously get your money like we all do. But you want to do certain things outside of work, and I didn't actually know when to quit working.
That's a big one.
That was the difficult part for me. I didn't actually know when to quit work, and I knew there was some things that I wanted to fulfill outside of work. And photography wasn't actually necessarily making me the money that work was making me, for me to be able to just up and leave. In the end, it was the passion that kind of made me want to leave. I looked at my circumstances. I was at home at the time. I felt like I had a bit of room or time to do that. And being able to leave just gave me an opportunity to put 100% effort into the thing that I was actually passionate about. And when I got to use that time, I think sometimes we don't really realize how much time we're given to work, like, because we spend our hours there, we go home. But actually, when you're using all that time and dedicating it to something that you want to do, a lot more opportunities came to light for me. I think that's when about 2 months after I quit, actually, I started shooting for GQ magazine. So I started working and shooting catwalk shows for an actual magazine. It was going into print. It was being posted on socials, and it started to feel a lot more tangible to me.
Yeah.
But I kind of took that as my first sign after stepping out of a 9 to 5 that things were going to make sense, basically.
That's a surreal moment though, shooting for GQ.
100%, yeah, definitely. It was a surreal moment. I'd shot certain shows, but I hadn't really worked with any big magazines or major clients at this time. But it gave me the opportunity to see things on a wider scope and shoot designers that I was really passionate about, but even then catch staple people that come to shows and connect with them in that way. And after a while, I feel like it started to reflect back to the music industry, which was the other passion of mine. So it started to build a full circle thing that made sense.
Yeah. So you were actually a trainee photographer at Rinse, right?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Years back.
Yeah, years back. Also, while I was still at my 9 to 5, I was doing that.
Really? So when you were doing that from where you are now as a full-time photographer, right?
Yeah.
From where you are now, I know that it's so important, not only as a photographer, but as a creative in general, to build a clientele and to have those connects, because you kind of have to go out there and do that yourself. So when you look back at that time to where you are now, how do you think you've built that or even grown?
I think at first, in that time, I think Rinse in certain times and certain people that I've spoken to in that time, they have become my clients, but that's not actually what I was looking at them for at the time. I was looking for experience and a place to grow and just advice and just a bit of guidance and nurturing. And I think that was them giving me an opportunity to be nurtured, then turn into something that I can supply for them, and now I can offer them something as well, which I think is the full circle benefit, and something that in some cases there is parts of, but sometimes I don't think there is enough of. And I think we can nurture each other more, and when we are able to grow each other, we kind of see our industry expand. And I think Rinse and a few other things that I was part of in the early starts of my career have helped me to do that. A lot of MCs kind of gave me opportunities to maybe come to shows, and because the access wasn't always simple to get to concerts. And when I started to build rapport, or like being able to just contact an artist randomly on socials and have them reply by chance, they were able to provide me with the opportunity of like, here's a pass, come to the show, and give me the access to be able to grow in the first place, and then they became clients.
So do you feel like starting out, that is a good place to start, like as a trainee or part of maybe a radio station, or would you say there's a good way to start?
Definitely. I think for me, the radio made sense because it was connected to music, and that was the foundation. So I think it might be different depending on the direction you want to go in, or even if you don't, as a creative, know the industry that you want to be in, because I've kind of made it very niche if we're talking about music. If you don't know the industry you want to be in, I think you have to allow yourself to be open to different things, and try and seek out those opportunities where you can. I think that is why I did things like exploring sport and exploring fashion. I've tried to do red carpet and things like that, but it's all to get a taste of, do I like this? Does this make sense for me? Knowing that you like taking pictures is one thing, but in what realm and what sense?
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like you've tried so many different things other than music, so it just shows that when you get into the industry, you can just try out anything, and it's not so rigid of just one lane that you're going in.
No, definitely, and I think that is it's something to keep in mind, because I think at first I was very music-minded, very music-led. I tried to go to every show possible and be as present as possible, and I don't think there was anything wrong with that. I just think at first it took me a bit of a minute to be open and to see that there's such a wide scope to the thing that I want to be in. Let's say we take it out of photography and we make it into like a musician, you might want to be the frontline person that's on stage. You might want to be the next music supervisor for a TV show who kind of picks all the songs that go into a show. You might want to be a composer and create the actual music that goes into scenes. There's so much scope, but also at a stage when you're not in the industry, there's so much roles that we aren't open to yet, that we don't actually know that is possible, it's there for us.
There's so much opportunity out there. So I watched, because you were on one of the episode of Nando's Booth Truth.
Yes.
So I watched that episode, and there's one thing that you said that really stood out to me, and you said that your Booth Truth was, you have to know bad to know good.
Yeah.
So could you speak more about what you meant by that?
Okay, so that episode was based around mental health. And I think to be able to really celebrate your ups, you kind of have to be aware of the down moments. And I think a bit of human nature is like we can tend to try and brush things away, and no one wants to kind of dwell in their bad experiences. But without that, you kind of won't know your good moments, and you won't know when things are on the up. So you kind of have to take that into account. Some of your failures are what helps you mark your successes. And it helps you be more grateful 100%.
for them as well, I think. And you've also said that when you first started out, there's a lot of things that you did wrong.
Yeah.
How important do you feel like it is to like navigate your mistakes, or even make mistakes in general?
It's actually really important to make mistakes, and I think I kind of feel like when I said that I thought the mistakes were done. And I think I'm learning now that it doesn't actually even work like that.
Yeah.
There's always a new level. So you can be in this room and want to get to the top of this room, but then you're going to hit the ceiling. And when you break through that, there's another floor. And it might at some point feel like starting all over again. And that is tough in itself. But you are starting over with experience, or you're starting over at a new point. It is a new challenge, and there's going to be new things that you have to face, but then you do have the experience behind you that brought you to the point that you're at.
I actually think that's a hard truth to swallow, because I think people think once you make it to a certain stage in your career, like, that's it, you're just going to be so easy. But I think you're always learning.
Definitely. And I think that's actually been like a recent learning curve for me, I think.
Really?
And you have to be open to being able to learn. And especially, I think ambition is a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to be ambitious.
Yeah.
You tick the one thing off, there's going to be something else you want to do, and something else you want to do. And how do you approach that with an open mind and not feeling defeated at the new challenge? I think it's trying to approach that within yourself and being okay with making those mistakes and coming back.
No, I definitely agree. And I actually think you're one of the people that is best to ask this question about pressure. Because as a photographer, whether you're at a festival or shooting anything, or even like a red carpet, sometimes you only have a few minutes to just capture that moment or that picture. How do you navigate pressure? Or do you feel that pressure?
I definitely feel the pressure.
Okay.
I definitely feel the pressure. I think it comes back to compartmentalizing, and I think also that it's something that I'm still learning. I actually don't have all the answers for that one, but I think it is a learning curve. I think at times I have enjoyed the pressure, and times I've felt the pressure on my shoulders. So it sways depending on the moment for me. Preparation, I think you can always try and to prepare for that moment. You might not always know the things that you need when you're going to be in a pressure moment, but even like if you know that that's coming in your day, preparing to feel like that kind of helps, so that you don't get too in your head in the moment. So when you are in that moment, you can think clearly and just move clearly. I think sometimes you can over prep in terms of like technicality. You want to have all the equipment in the world, or you want to have everything that may be in your creative path at your resource, but first thing that you want to mentally prepare and be okay with is probably up here.
Yeah, because being in your head in the moment is just the worst thing. And when we're like obviously looking at these images that we can see, that's obviously the outcome of it, but you also edit the images, you go through the whole process and stuff. What about the pressure of like when the artist finally sees what you've come up with? Do you feel that pressure as well?
Do you know what? I think I've stopped feeling that pressure, and I'm a bit open to the fact that it's a bit of give and take in artistic direction. When you're working with any client or any person, they're gonna have a way that they see things, and you have a way that you view things. I think as a photographer and as an artist, it's almost my responsibility to communicate what my vision might be, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna align with whoever I'm giving it to. They're gonna give me feedback and decide how they want things to be, and we kind of find where the middle is and meet there.
And what is the process always the same when you like edit your pictures and stuff, or is it vary?
It varies sometimes, but a lot of the time it is pretty much the same, because I am a person who I like to edit my photos and definitely put a stamp of my color, or I mean sometimes it's black and white, so non-color, or whatever my tone might be. I kind of want it to have that stamp. So even when things do go off like this, for instance, this actually might not be the best example, because this was a single cover, but we as a team were all so happy with it that if you see the song, there's nothing on this. That is the single cover with parental advisory on it, and that's it, no text, no anything.
Really?
But
so
there is cases where you're working with clients, and as a photographer, I'm going to hand stuff over, and it's going to get graphic design and text on it and things like that, and that's not something that I have a say in, but everyone kind of has to be passionate about their role and work on it overall to create the vision that looks complete once it's out.
No, but it looks amazing. It looks great. And before you go into anything, whether it be a shoot, again, like a red carpet or anything that you're shooting, what do you keep at the forefront of your mind?
I think now I'm in a place where I think about what it is that I actually want to create and achieve. It's weird because I feel like it's two different headspaces, and my headspaces have changed a lot, especially when doing live. And doing concerts, there's the sense of like enjoyment. I've always gone to everything as a consumer, and as a fan. I'm a fan of music. That's how I got there in the first place.
Yeah.
And especially being in the pit. And for those who don't know, like the pit is like that slim front bit of the show. So between the audience and between the stage, it's it's a weirdly beautiful place to be because you're obviously at the front of the show, but you're at the front of all the energy of the crowd. You're actually in the middle of all of it. So the crowd are obviously giving that energy to the artist is giving that energy to the crowd, and then you stand in the middle of that transfer. So I've always liked being part of that, and that's helped me focus more on the moment rather than the creative. As I feel like I'm growing as a photographer, I want to have more of a creative stamp on things, and that takes place like when I'm doing press shots or maybe working on a campaign for a client and deciding what that looks like, and that's kind of when I think more about my creativity, what my colors want to be like, maybe if there's things that I want to reference, and how do I kind of expand my art on my craft.
You know, it's actually funny that you speak about the whole concert, then you're in the middle, because usually when you're at concerts and stuff, sometimes I forget the photographers are there. Like, they're just like I know you're there, but sometimes because you're just moving about so much and like, you just don't think about it, but you're actually in the middle of that energy. Have you had any like crazy experiences just being in the middle of that and just...
Yeah, 100%, yeah. There's so many crazy experiences to have, and I think the one that I kind of share with everyone is going to the Section Boys show and Drake coming out.
Oh my God.
Working the show, I didn't know Drake was coming out.
You didn't?
We were told I think a few people had to leave the pit to kind of clear the space. Someone tapped me and told me that I had to stay. Okay. And someone tapped a few other people and said, stay. And we're kind of like, why? Like, everyone's going. Yeah. And that happened, so we were very much in it the same way everyone else was in it. So, and also you kind of have to unfreeze and start shooting and capturing it. So it's like, it's such a weird moment. Yeah,
because at the same time you're shocked as well. Yeah. So it's like,
you're just as gassed, just as excited, but then you're like, okay, wait.
Yeah. No, because I've seen the videos from that moment, so I could only imagine how crazy it was.
Definitely. It's such a sick moment, and I think that's what those things like that, and being able to have those moments for me made shooting concerts worth it. Like being able to be there, being able to live in it, but then also being able to capture it and create something that hopefully lives on from that moment as well.
And it's good that person told you to stay, because imagine you left. So like I said at the beginning of this live, it's all about getting tangible advice that creatives ourselves can take away and also grow from and learn from. So before the live, we asked you for 3 pieces of advice that you'd like to share that would help us, and we're going to go through them. So your first one was explore life and let it inspire you. Why did you choose this one?
I chose this one because I think I chose this one because of my background, really. I've grown up on an estate, and I think a lot of people can have that shared experience of London, but a lot of people have, or even outside of London, but everyone has done it in different ways. And I've seen it in some of my peers and stuff growing up, who maybe weren't as open as me and didn't take or haven't found those opportunities to explore. And I think if I didn't pick up the camera and start doing some of what I did, especially when I started doing music videos before images, it was all very local. it was all so local artists and things like that. But it started to snowball and obviously bring me opportunities to see so much different things. I've been blessed enough to say that I've shot things around the world, like, and there's places that I never would have been to if it wasn't for picking up the camera. But when I look at how that started, it's all from a very small, humble place that allowed me to explore. But I think sometimes not a lot of us know that there's opportunities outside of there's opportunities outside of that, and following just a passion and seeing where it goes, it might take you somewhere that you never really thought about going, and you just help open up your mind a bit.
Yeah, and kind of got you to the different career paths that you were speaking of.
Yeah.
That you can explore different routes. How do you think that you keep inspired? Like, do you make sure that you're always remembering that, or
I
think it
think
naturally comes?
Inspiration fades naturally. Every feeling fades naturally. So I do think inspiration is something that I've had to learn to seek out.
Okay.
And I think a big thing of that is what I'm learning is to check in with myself a lot more. And just check in and just see how things are going. Where is your happiness level at? Where is your inspiration level at? Where's your motivation at? And then maybe monitor like why it's either high or low, and where that takes you. And I think that will help you to know when to look for inspiration or when to try and step out of your box a little bit and maybe try something different and shake things up.
Yeah, being aware, definitely. So your second one was don't lose sight of the enjoyment. Why did you choose this one?
I think that comes into checking in with yourself again as well. I think sometimes you can get so caught up in doing the same thing, especially because you've decided that you initially enjoy it, that maybe you haven't noticed when your enjoyment levels started dropping off, and maybe you're not putting the same effort into it and things like that. And that's kind of when you have to shake it up and find out why. And also it's a good guidance as well, because the industry, I don't feel like the industry is easy. Or my side, I don't think any industry is easy, but I don't think that my side of the industry is easy. So also check in with yourself to remind yourself why you're doing it, and kind of remember that the good points, what are you looking for to get out of it? What is the thing that's gonna make you happy? And when you know that you're ticking off those boxes and checking in with your happiness and that is sorted, then you can do some of the other things. You might not get the big money jobs every day or the happy jobs every day, but if you're doing enough of them, then you have time to compartmentalize and do the other stuff, maybe the thing that's not gonna bring you the most joy or the most money or the most this, but you're doing X, Y, Z that's ticking those boxes, so you're content.
Exactly. Do you feel like you ever do that in the moment as well? Like, for example, when you spoke about the Section Boys concert, or just when you're on the red carpet, do you ever think in that moment? I know it's so hard when you have your photographer hat on and you just gotta work, but do you ever take a step back in that moment and think, I'm here right now and I'm doing this?
Definitely. I think I have to. I think it is part of my mental preparation, and I think with everything that I do now, sometimes it is a bit of a give and take. In terms of not every job is going to fulfill all of my needs, but it might fulfill certain needs. It might be giving me an opportunity to do something that I want to do, but it might not be ticking some other boxes for me, and that is the give and take. Yeah. So I have to be present in the moment to give my all, and it actually kind of leads me onto another thing. I think when you're always aiming to work at your best is now expected. But that's not human. You can't work at 100% all the time. It's just not natural. But if you are checking in with yourself, you know when to take those moments so you can recoup and get back to being 100 and then get back to doing what it is that you actually do.
I feel like it's so hard not to be so hard on yourself.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a learning curve for myself. Yeah. That's something that I'm still working on.
Navigating, still learning. And then your final one, which I really, really liked, was learn to be okay with failing.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm still working on as well. I think that one is definitely a bit of a message to myself and a bit of a testament to my year, especially when you want to transition and you want to step into different things. I think, as I said before, like you will reach a level where you feel like you've maybe hit your ceiling and you want to break through and you want to level up. And I think you have to be okay with failing. I think if you pick some of your favorite artists, they've made albums or songs or they've done stuff that you think isn't good. You haven't enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You're not going to enjoy everyone's offering that they bring to you, but they come back and they keep going and they spend time reinventing and finding new sounds or new art or whatever it is that helps them feel refreshed and inspired and make them go again. So you have to be okay with sometimes putting stuff out there and it failing, it maybe not doing as well as you hoped, and maybe not even giving it too much headspace. Maybe it's not something that you look at and be like, oh, I have to go back to the drawing board and figure out everything. Like, no, just keep going. Like maybe that idea needs improvement or that element will work when in the future with something else. It's not everything that worked at the time that you put it out. And I think, man, things are becoming a bit instantaneous. Do you know what I mean? We want to put things out and get like a sense of validation or gratitude straight away, and we've especially I'm learning especially that photography is something that marinates over time, and that photo might mean something in 10 years and I'm not going to know that until I let those 10 years breathe and see what happens from then. So I have to be willing to make mistakes, and it might be a mistake now, it might be something great later on.
Do you like know an example of when you have failed and you've learned from it? Like, could you share an example?
100%. Let me think of one that I can share because, I think sometimes when you're communicating like artistic visions and things like that, the communication can sometimes be the hardest part.
Yeah.
So maybe what I'm getting, what I'm receiving from what someone is saying isn't actually what we're going for, and it's sometimes maybe until you see it on set, you're like, this is actually not what I was asking for. But it's how you navigate that and how you kind of handle that conversation or how you adapt what you're doing on the day. And sometimes even working on the fly makes it more difficult, especially when, you know, as I've seen earlier, you've done all the prep, you've done all the mental prep, you feel like you're ready, and now that's maybe the pressure that you wasn't expecting is landing on your shoulders. And I think a lot of the times it's how you come back from those mistakes. Especially, I feel like a lot of us want to enter the industry at a younger age and a younger time, and I definitely entered at a young time, and I know that maybe for myself or for my clients, I haven't handled all my interactions perfectly because I haven't had the knowledge of how to. I haven't maybe handled all my business correctly because I haven't had the knowledge of how to, but that is the learning curve, and that is kind of something that you have to be okay with failing at, because we're not going to get it right every time. You stepped into something so new, but there's actually so many moving parts that have been operating, and as I said earlier, we don't even know all the roles of what we want to step into, let alone what everyone else is doing that makes that whole thing work. So you have to be okay with failing and being open to learning from those mistakes, because they are going to keep happening.
No, definitely, and definitely forgiving yourself for them, because like even you spoke about the communication thing, I feel like you could even hold on to that and be like, I've just done everything wrong now, that's it, I'm not going back there, because that's just humiliating, or like I could have done better. But it's definitely forgiving yourself, I think, is the first step of like overcoming that failure.
Very much, I very much agree with you. I think you have to forgive yourself, and a lot of the times we are our harshest critics. I know for me, I'm learning that I didn't really know that I was my harshest critic, but I really am. And I think learning to forgive myself it can be an uphill struggle.
Yeah.
But as you do start to let go a little bit, you can be open to trying and failing and understanding that not everything is going to work. But then even in failing or even in the negativity, there is lessons you can learn, and that kind of brings it full circle to you have to know bad to know good.
and being a better version of yourself, I think. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you for those pieces of advice. I feel like everyone is definitely going to take away from that, especially learn from your experiences as well. We're now going to go into an in-house Q&A. We're going to have our next Upgrade Yourself live on the 26th of September. So if you want to be part of the live audience, you can sign up to our newsletter. Again, big thank you to Ashley.
Thanks for having me.